Welcome to the Kai Greene Effect.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Kizzy K with the AKA here with my man Vlad Uden, Generation Iron. We got something going on. This is called the Kai Greene Effect. And if you're at the sound of my voice right now, then you know it's about to go down because this is what we do on this lovely afternoon.
So we got some cool topics today, but I think we don't have questions per se, but we have a couple of interesting comments from the listeners, and I wanted for you, if you don't mind, address some of these comments because they're interesting. I want to get your
Okay.
take on it. So these are not questions. We don't have a lightning round today, but these are more of I guess, comments on the previous episode. It was interesting. So I think we should get into that first, and then we'll do a couple of topics.
Okay.
So there's an interesting comment from Jeff Flohl, and Jeff says Kai is top 5 bodybuilders of all time. Phil was just competing same time as him. 2014, I think Kai should have won. Now, what's interesting about that, he's saying that you are top 5 of all time, which is very impressive. Do you feel like that?
You know what? I think it's always awesome to hear like some of the enthusiasts of the sport, our supporters, say some really cool things that might feel very soothing to the ego. But I my favorite of all time. It might be one of those things that's very hard to kind of feel worthy or something like that. I mean, just because I look up to so many really awesome athletes. That were amazing talents before me. And I think that I was certainly encouraged by their actions. And yeah, man, I couldn't see myself. I would say that I'm my favorite and most influential athlete in my life. The largest influence that I will know I can ever, touch or claim to be in relationship to in my entire career would be me. I couldn't be in my own top five beyond that. Yeah.
This guy said that in 2014 he thinks you should have won, meaning Olympia. But in your personal opinion, which year and what show was your favorite physique of yourself? The one that physique you thought that was looking back at your career, right? Like, what year and what show was the best physique that you've delivered in your opinion?
So, very honestly, for me to say that, the first thing that comes to my mind is there's a lot that the fans and the enthusiasts of the sport don't get a chance to see. When we start talking about considering the totality of an athlete's career and the best packages they brought to the stage. So yeah, I think I've seen an entire career that can be reduced into, a snapshot that is 6 photos long or 6 video clips condensed into one, and up, that's it. And if so to answer that question, I say that first because yeah, man, there's some really awesome opportunities I think that we've taken to really bring an amazing package to the stage at different times. And though it may not have been seen from one angle, maybe the two angles that are used to make the point usually or support the narrative that someone else is trying to sell.
So you don't have one? You don't have a favorite Kai Greene physique that you've admired the most out of your career? You don't have one that just you can mention that the one that's like, you really thought that you accomplished something amazing.
I think to be honest, there probably are many different times where you as an athlete can even forget just how the process of your prep went, 16 years ago. Oh yeah, there was this one show, 11 years ago. That was it, man. I got this. I accomplished A, B, C, and D. And in fact, it's not until you go through your notes, but because the body of work is there and because you've invested the time, surely you have to imagine that, yeah, the argument can be made. Oh yeah, I do remember. Like I remember being in Spain, and I remember definitely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, making it very clear that we We know where we are. You know what this is. Um, and there are conversations that the athlete will always be able to have with the judges and other people that are officials that the fan or the enthusiast will never get a chance to have. They're not going to be privileged to have those conversations or even know. Um, yeah, and and it's those things that will actually shape the opinion of the athlete in
The
question.
the Spain one was right after the Olympia, right? That was the Arnold Classic Spain, right? That's the one you're
Yeah,
talking
but you don't
about.
see a lot of photos of that. You don't see a lot of videos of that. You know, and there are reasons why that's not allowed to be seen. There are reasons why. It's not just that show, but it's, you could do a deep dive in that stuff. A lot of people would say they could, but where are you getting your information from? What photos and video footage have you been allowed to really see over the last 10 years? It's almost like for the most devout fan at home, if you were to ask them the question what they think they know, you realize that you don't really know much, and that's why the interviews are important. That's why we ask for the insight, hence why we have the question in front of me today. So I will say, in an effort to answer that, they're just too much. There's just too much and too many times when I would imagine that there's a lot of information to process. I wouldn't be able to say it as effectively in this moment. But there have been a lot of times, brother, a lot of times. Your man was right there, right there.
All right, let's go to this next comment.
Yes, yeah.
Now, this one is in reference to, I guess, it's. I'll read the comment, but this is in reference to like, I guess body development and bodybuilding and what it means to be a bodybuilder. So his name is Acel Smash 1168.
Mm.
He's quoting what you said. He put in quotations: a developed character that can build a body into extreme positive development, and quotations. And then he's saying, meanwhile, that's something you've said, I guess. And then what he's saying here is, meanwhile, the real world bodybuilders are dropping like flies by the age of 30. So, it's an interesting topic here, right? Because some people may think that a lot of people are dying in the bodybuilding industry, right? In the last few years. You can look at it from different perspectives,
Mm.
There were a lot of people that passed away, of course, on different levels. Some pro bodybuilders passed away in the last couple of years. But then ultimately, a lot of it's being reported now, you know what I mean? Whereas before, maybe some of those deaths would not be reported on, you know what I mean?
Mm.
So, do
Mm.
you think that there's a lot of issues in bodybuilding, I guess, world where people are dying younger? And I guess does the bodybuilding lifestyle could the bodybuilding lifestyle be blamed for that? It's an interesting topic. It's somewhat controversial, and it's a loaded question here. You know what I mean? Because there's so much that we can talk about, but we only have a few minutes, right? But like, what do you think about? I guess he's kind of calling not you out, but he's kind of saying, hey, forget about this character development. People are basically dying and getting hurt in this sport. So I don't know. What did you take on it?
So my take is this: in order to be a champion, does not mean that a person that defines themselves as a champion needs to use pharmaceutical PEDs and other controlled substances in order to be a champion. In order to be an athlete, you can be an athlete and not need to, by being an athlete, subscribe to the lifestyle of what bodybuilding means to you, um, and not need to do anything that is considered dangerous, threatening, and with the intent of compromising your health. In fact, the old school idea of this experience as a lifestyle was with health, and help to benefit your overall functionality of having a good quality life. I think it existed before and it still exists today.
Well, there you have it, straight from Kai Greene.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are other things that I guess a lot of people would want to say, but your perception of this thing is everything. What do you want to see? And more importantly, what is it that needs to be said? When you're in the spotlight, there's a responsibility that you have.
Yeah, and I think people need to understand the risk versus the reward ratio, right? Like, and sort of like how much dedication they want to have for this, right? Because if you're not fully dedicated into this, then you probably should not be even contemplating any of this type of stuff. You know what I
But
mean?
dedicated to what? Dedicated to what? You know,
To becoming a real successful professional bodybuilder and actually, winning the shows that you want to win, right? If that's not
so
on your if that's not your goal, then I feel like you should not even be having these type of thoughts.
But see, that's the thing. There are people that are athletes that are able. You're able to improve from right where you are. You can start right where you are, and put yourself on the path to positive self development.
Exactly.
You can
Exactly.
improve your chest. You can improve the size of your arms. You can improve weight loss. You can develop better eating strategies just to appreciate, experiencing a better quality of life. And if you're doing that, and you know, and along the way of doing that, you're able to say, "Hey, I follow these tenets that I admire, and it allows me to become more in touch with what it means to me to be an athlete or to be involved in some athletic endeavor related to the sport of my experience." Everybody is not, aspiring to be, in the most extreme level of condition and physical development. For some people it is, hey man, I compete with a organization that is unknown, and um the requirements there are just not the same as some of the more extremes. And for me, this is great. And how dare you tell me that I'm not a real bodybuilder? I am not really subscribing to accept the discipline that is required to make the improvements necessary as I feel fit to.
Yeah, no, I hear you. All right, Kai, let's get into these. We have a couple of topics. They kind of interesting, and they might shock the audiences that you're actually going to address some of this stuff. But I want to know if it's true or not. So obviously, bodybuilders have nicknames, right? There's the Blade, whatever. Everybody has their own nickname, and your nickname in the bodybuilding was known as the Predator. Is it true that you actually did not come up with that name? It was given to you by accident by Bob Cicarillo, and it stuck with you, and that you actually did not like that nickname. Is that true or not?
No, not at all. So there was a gentleman that used to own Twin Lab and then later acquired Muscular Development Magazine. His name was Steve Bleckman. Um, and he was a lover of the sport of bodybuilding, an absolute enthusiast. His family had been invested in doing a number of influential things behind the scenes to benefit the sport. And I was fortunate enough to be signed at that time with Steve Bleckman. And when they did, I think there was a what is that idea when you talk about the face of entertainment and you talk about uh, naming your athletes, and for the sake of just beginning to control a narrative that you could write about and continue to share with the fans that are subscribing and following and supporting um, the promotional efforts of your cause. Steve Blackman, um, I heard come up with, "I'm gonna call you. I want you to be my predator, Kai. I want you to be my predator." You know?
That's a good impression
And
right there.
at the time, he wanted to call the column. There was a column that we had in Muscular Development magazine. This is back at a time when having a publishing contract was one of the rites of passage for an athlete, the newly turned pro, looking to solidify for himself a uh, earning a living, as a pro bodybuilder. This was like, so when you got your publishing deal, usually meant that you were going to be used a lot more in the magazines. And with that, you'd be able to receive a salary, and that salary would ultimately be the thing that for a lot of people would justify the fact of being a pro athlete and being able to handle and pay for your responsibilities of supporting yourself and the responsibilities that you had now as an athlete that not only, were legitimized by your association with the magazine and the publishing contract, but then also your ability to earn money on stage and then continue to develop the entrepreneurial side of things for yourself going forward. So as a bodybuilder, as a pro bodybuilder, you became a businessman. So anyway, um, with the publishing deal that we had with Muscular Development, Steve Blackman labeled his athletes with some great names, and he gave me the name The Predator, and that was going to be the name of the column, the column we had in the magazine. Um, with saying that, I realized, yeah, there was a time when I thought that was, I thought it was
You didn't like the name,
interesting.
right? Did you like the name or no?
So I personally I liked it, but I understood that there's a lot of things. I think, there's a pie in the face that comes with the job, So as an entertainment personality, you understand, as an actor, you understand, hey man, you can't be afraid to make a fool of yourself. And expect that, with that will come some ridicule and maybe some negative backlash. One of the things that I thought around that time in my career, I was the first guy to come through wearing dreads
Right.
in a long time. So prior to that, athletes would get on stage and they'd be told by the judges long before you got there, coming through the ranks as an amateur, you need to be clean cut, no tattoos, very conservative, very, very, very conservative. Not even having more than one earring on the wrong side of your head would have been identified as, being over the top
Hmm.
and thought of as like, yeah, nah, we're not even going to take you seriously. And literally, what would happen is you'd have athletes that would get on stage, and if you didn't have the right hairstyle, and if you didn't have, you had too many tattoos, or you had one too many piercings that were visible from the stage, it was the judges would tell you, listen, we're not even looking at you. And you could be the worst place to be, the worst seat in the house is to be on the stage hitting your shots there. Got the 5 guys lined up or 13 guys lined up, front double bicep. They call for the shot. You're standing right in front of them and they're looking every way. The judges are looking at everyone else but you, as if you're not there at all. Like, why even continue to hit the shot? The worst place, the worst seat in the house, let me tell you, is to find yourself there where the judges are not even looking at you at all. So to work so hard to train and to find yourself there. And the judge would tell you, listen, you got to cut your hair. In fact, there probably were,
They told you this? The judges asked you to cut your hair?
oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So before turning pro, there was a part of me that almost just really didn't know if that was even going to be allowed to
I had no
happen
idea about
because
this.
they wanted you to cut your hair. And uh at the time, I really was committed to the idea of having my hair as a trademark,
Right, right,
and
right.
recognizing that beyond competing on stage at some point, the trademark would still be something that's recognizable, and I'd be able to use that to move into other stages of my career, marketing and promotion. So Sean Ray was known for having the flat top, and everyone knew Mr. T. Trademarking your hairstyle was a great way to trademark, um, you know, um, your name as an intellectual property. So, just to be very honest, I was told by a lot of people, earlier on, particularly when I started growing my hair out and got my hair to a certain length and stuff. Listen, the judges aren't going to take you seriously until you cut your hair. And you need to stop doing that weird posing that you do. It's just weird and it's distracting. Just stick to shots. Um, but I really did believe that on some level, the connection to the creativity side of things was going to be the thing that allows you to not only fulfill your purpose or function on stage while you were competing, but it would also lead to new opportunity on the other side of that. So Steve Leckman, the idea of the Predator, the title for the column that I had in Muscular Development magazine, it was being set up, and that was the thing that became the name that was continued to be referenced
Yeah,
when
for a
thinking
while.
about Kai Greene.
But you don't use that anymore, right? You don't use Predator anymore, do you?
Yeah, so at some point, while I was continuing to train and even work with Muscular Development magazine, I took on the Predator. I mean, I left the Predator and became King Kai. And King Kai was actually, the I guess the hero character of my
Right, right,
comic
right.
book and graphic novel. And to do that, in its pages, we actually originally killed the Predator. So King Kai killed the Predator and continued to go on to tell my own storytelling narrative.
I remember we were
Beyond that.
filming for your documentary, and it was at the Arnold. I forgot what year it was. I think it was 20, maybe 18 at the Arnold Classic. You were on stage at Arnold Schwarzenegger, and there was another guy there. I forgot his name. He was the creator of the Predator comic book.
Yeah.
And both of you guys, it's ironically, right, Predator comic book, but both of you guys were like drawing something on the stage, some kind of comic or something, a drawing. And then Arnold was like doing kind of like an interview with you, and then at the end you presented him with the sketch. It was kind of cool. I remember that. But ironically, the
Yeah,
guy created
Doug
the
Mahey. Doug
yeah. There you
Mahey
go.
was
Yeah,
his
yeah.
name.
There you go.
He actually was the chief artist on the Batman series. In fact, he was doing some really awesome work at that time. And he gave Arnold a really awesome pen and ink sketch of Arnold Schwarzenegger, like when he was starring in the role of Conan. It was this dude was really talented. Yeah, and I did have an opportunity to sit on a stage with Arnold Schwarzenegger and an audience of people. One of the mornings after the Arnold Classic, with Doug Haney there, and it was awesome. It was
It
awesome.
was. It was. Speaking of your documentary, so when we did your documentary, by the way, it's available for people who want to see it. It's on, so people can watch it for free on Prime. But you were very open in the documentary about different aspects of your life, right? So you were basically explain different parts of your story in a way that's like made people understand what transpired, right? So in that documentary, you've explained like what happened with that whole controversial video, the Grapefruit video, as people call it, right? You're very open about it. You explain sort of like how that came about, right? So people can watch it and see what actually transpired. But so we don't have to go into that, right? But what I want to ask you is when that video, right, when it started leaking, and I guess people were posting it on. Back then, it was like bodybuilding forums, right? Like different forums online, and people were sharing it. And I guess the people found out about. Some people in the industry found out about it, right? What was it like for you? Like, did they tell you? Like, how was that dealing with that situation? Because at that time you were competing. You're a bodybuilder, obviously, right? You're a pro bodybuilder, and something comes back from obviously previous years. And what was the vibe like for you? How did you deal with it when people were, I guess, talking about it or sharing that stuff? Did that affect you in any way? How were you dealing with it? I know people want to know about this.
Interestingly enough, I guess at the time it might have felt like, oh my God, but I mean, controversy sells. At the time it might have been embarrassing, because the controversy that sells really. I mean, technically, if you and I mean, you were an athlete that was in of public note, in the spotlight, and yeah, somebody pops up and says, "Hey, well, I saw some old video tape of him, performing at a strip show," and it's like, "Oh my God, it's." But I mean, since then, I mean, I know that there's a lot of I mean, we still having the P Diddy trial, so I think I might.
But you know what's funny, Kai? I feel like these days, especially celebrities, right?
Uh,
Like these days specifically, because a lot of celebrities have tapes come out of them, right? Some kind of whatever, right? I mean, tapes that reveal something you're not revealing about. But ultimately, nobody cares anymore. Like I feel like that stigma is doesn't even exist anymore. It's either helps or it's irrelevant. You know what I'm saying?
right, right, right. I think it helped me at the time because it's funny. You take a lot of things for granted that you know how you're going to act in a situation. You'll hear people say all the time, if it was me, I would do this. And it's like they go through a fraction of an experience that's a little bit challenging. And the first thing they do is not the thing that they said they would have done. A lot of times, in the face of disappointment, you know, um, adversity, you can turn around and fold up, run to the hills, hide. There are people that have, probably made some other choices, for feelings of shame and embarrassment and just experienced other destructive behaviors as a result. I mean, technically, I feel like it was an opportunity to definitely grow and be exposed to some new challenges that helped me do just that. Grow and develop, and with that, you become an example for even yourself. When you have to deal with some other things, there's a difference between a minor inconvenience, you know, and tragedy, you know. At the time, that experience may have felt very much like a tragedy, but it wasn't. It was a minor inconvenience. We live in a day and age where the president of the United States has been able to do a hell of a lot more and show us all that it can be done and it can be overcome and it doesn't have to be held against you anywhere, not even in the court of law. So, yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. I recommend people watching this documentary because it was you're very open about a lot of things in your life, the triumphs, the dark times, coming up. It was your story is definitely inspirational, and I feel like people can learn so much just by understanding your journey. You know what I mean? I'm very proud of that project. I mean,
Yeah, I think we got a chance to do something really, really good. At that time, man, I really had to give, you guys credit because to be able to come to the set and to sit down and be able to participate in all of the preliminary work that you did, Vlad, prior to even getting on screen or on set, and before the cameras were even brought into it, a lot of the research and a lot of the effort that you put into that, Vlad, was like really top notch.
thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're funny you brought up because we would. What I said was, Kyle, let's meet up, for a couple of hours. Just tell me I have a lot of questions about your life. I'm gonna film the audio of it, right, so for my own personal reference, so I can build like the blocks. And it's supposed to be a couple of hours, right? So you came in and you started telling me about your life. Now, fast forward 7 days later, literally, and it wasn't a couple of hours. It was literally 6 hour days. I was like, Kai, is this it? Like, did we get to the bottom of everything? You just go 7 days of conversing and recording it. Yeah, that was something, man.
Yeah, well,
It helped. I appreciate that.
yeah, I mean, you really did labor through that, a lot of times people will talk about, award-winning documentary stuff and, they'll give some credit, but they won't ever, get a chance to deeply dive into what that work looked like behind the scenes, and just how um, diligent and responsible, you know, your role had to be when turning over some of those stones and doing some of that history for the discovery necessary to even before even beginning where to start with trying to tell that story in the first
It's
place.
kind of like bodybuilding, right, Kai? Because when fans they see you on stage, right, they don't care how much what you've done to be there, right? What you had to, or it's kind of a similar in that regard. When people just want to see, okay, let me see what you got, right? But they don't really experience what you experience. So it's kind of relatable to what you've been through.
Yeah, well, that's the luxury of being the fan or the enthusiast at home. To watch your favorite baseball game, and to feel like you get the experience of being actually on the field, on the pitcher's mound or at the reception point when the batter, puts his bat on the ball, um, a lot of times the fan or enthusiast at home in their comfort zone can argue with the player. Why did that coach make that decision? That athlete's a bum. How can he make those choices while out there on the field? And it's like, you're not there. But I would have done it differently. But you're not there. You couldn't do it because you're not there. It's the luxury of the comfort zone, is what the enthusiast at home gets a chance to appreciate. And sometimes because they're so involved and captivated, it can be very, very hard to remember that, what your role is and where you are in your comfort zone.
Exactly. And on that note, we're out of time, Kai, unfortunately.
Hey, but S-Ray goes faster and faster each time. I think you guys are jipping me. Jipping me. I got to see the clock, man. I got to see the clock. We're going to have to keep the minutes. We're going to have a reader of the minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But I appreciate this opportunity, as always. Yeah, man. This has been a developing relationship over years now. I appreciate being able to have this moment of exchange, get a chance to chop it up a little bit. We're under construction here. Some new things going on, some awesome things coming down the pipeline. I'm very, very excited. I'm very, very thankful to even have this opportunity. To the people at home, I know you're listening, and thank you again for tuning in. We're going to sign off, but as we do, we want to always encourage you to keep it positive and keep encouraging each other. Until next time. This has been the Kai Greene Effect. Your boy K with the AKA Mr. Getting It Done. Vlad Uden, Generation Iron. We are out.